For 10 solid years, I was Victoria Ashford's personal bodyguard, her shadow. It all started because of a cheeseburger she handed me when I was a 6-year-old kid, starving and shivering next to a dumpster. It was hot, greasy, wrapped in paper, and the best thing I'd ever tasted. That single moment of grace was the only light in my bleak childhood. For that cheeseburger, I gave her a decade of my life. I've taken a bullet for her, stopped a knife, dismantled kidnapping plots, and beaten back a line of unworthy suitors long enough to stretch down the interstate. From her rebellious Sweet 16 to her rise as a 26-year-old business phenom, I was the ghost who handled all her problems. Until this morning, on my 30th birthday, I stood in front of the mirror, tracing the scar that ran from my eyebrow to my jaw, a souvenir from the knife meant for her last year. And just like that, the tether that had held me to her for 10 years snapped. I was tired, done with being a shadow. I wanted to stand in the sun, have a place to call home, and a person waiting for me to come home to. When I placed my resignation letter and a wedding invitation on her desk at the same time, the unflappable Ms. Ashford finally lost her cool. Married? To who? When did this happen? Victoria snatched the gold-embossed invitation, her knuckles white. The words were squeezed through her clenched teeth. For the first time, a crack appeared on her face, a face maintained by a $1 million skincare routine, an expression I'd never seen on her before. Panic. I stood in my standard at-ease posture, hands clasped in front of me. She's a preschool teacher. We've known each other for 6 months. The wedding is on the 1st of next month. The truth was, Grace and I had known each other for a year and 3 months. But for the first 9, I was convinced it was a one-sided crush. A guy like me, who lived on the edge and dealt in violence, had no business dreaming about a woman so gentle, so full of light. Then, 3 months ago, I took a few too many drinks for Victoria at a tense negotiation, ended up in the hospital with a bleeding ulcer. Grace was a hospital volunteer who read to the kids in the pediatric ward. She ended up spending a few days looking after me, too. In the early hours of my 30th birthday, she sent me a text. Jake, if you ever decide you want a different kind of life after you get out of there. I was wondering if I could be a part of it. Staring at that message, at the sterile white ceiling of the hospital room, I made a decision for myself for the first time in my life. 6 months, Victoria shot to her feet, her stilettos cracking against the polished marble floor. She waved the invitation in my face. Jake Carter, you've been with me for 10 years. You meet some nobody for 6 months, and you're getting married? Her name is Grace Miller. She's not a nobody. I corrected, my voice steady. After a decade, I knew exactly how to handle Victoria's temper, with unwavering calm. But today it wasn't working. I don't approve. She slammed the invitation on her desk, the force rattling an antique vase nearby. Your contract isn't up. Ma'am, my contract expired last month. You were in Paris for Fashion Week and said we'd sign a new one when you got back. I reminded her. I'm already a month overdue on my resignation. She'd clearly forgotten. Her perfect face went blank for a second before a new wave of fury washed over it. Then sign one now. I'll double your salary. No, triple it. I shook my head. It's not about the money. Then what is it about? She stepped closer, her expensive perfume flooding my senses. I'd smelled that scent for 10 years. I used to think it was the most beautiful smell in the world, the scent of a life I could protect but never touch. Now it just felt suffocating. I want a life of my own, I said. Bodyguards can't get married? Who made that rule? Get married. Move her in here. There are plenty of rooms in the penthouse. Victoria waved her hand dismissively, as if offering the grandest prize imaginable. Before I could answer, a soft knock came from the office door. Her assistant peeked in. Ms. Ashford, the board meeting is in 5 minutes. Victoria shot her a look that could freeze fire. Postpone it. The door clicked shut. She turned back to me, taking a deep breath, tried to regain her usual composure, but the slight tremor in her fingertips gave her away. Jake, what we have, it's more than just a contract, isn't it? Her voice softened, a tactic she used to close difficult deals. 10 years. That time you took a bullet for me. You told me in the hospital you'd always protect me. I was just coming out of anesthesia. What I said was, Ms. Ashford, I'll recover as quickly as possible to continue my duties. I corrected her memory without inflection. It was important. For 10 years, I had never crossed a single line. I wouldn't start now by leaving behind a legacy of misinterpretation. Her expression was like she'd been slapped. She was silent for a moment, then snatched her phone. I want a background check on a Grace Miller, a preschool teacher. Yes, now. I frowned. Ma'am, please don't involve her. Just doing my due diligence on a future employee's spouse. Isn't that allowed? She retorted, her tone once again dripping with arrogance. Or is there something about this, Ms. Miller, that you don't want me to know? I knew it was pointless to argue. When Victoria Ashford wanted something, she got it. Half an hour later, the report pinged on her phone. Faster than I expected. Victoria scanned the screen, then let out a short, sharp laugh. Father passed away. Mother sells bread at a farmer's market. A little brother still in high school. Jake, you bled for me for a decade, and this is what you traded all for? This. Ordinary girl. The way she said ordinary sounded like garbage. My fists clenched, then slowly relaxed. She's incredible. She put herself through college. She's a wonderful teacher, and she's kind to everyone. And what can she give you? A mortgaged 2-bedroom condo in the suburbs? A home-cooked meal when you get off work? A life spent nickel-and-diming over grocery bills? Victoria put down her phone and stepped right in front of me, tilting her head back to look up at me. Her eyes held an emotion I couldn't decipher. Jake, you deserve better. Stay with me, and you can have so much more than that. It was the first time she had ever said the words, you deserve. For 10 years, it had always been I'll give you. I appreciate the sentiment, Ms. Ashford, but what I want is exactly what you just described as ordinary. I gave a slight bow. My resignation and the invitation are on your desk. Per my contract, I have a week of paid leave and transition time. The work phone and car keys are here. Starting today, Leo will be taking over my duties. He's highly capable and trustworthy. I placed the items on the coffee table. If there's nothing else, I'll be going. Grace is waiting for me downstairs. She's in my building. Victoria's voice shot up an octave. At the coffee shop across the street, I clarified. Without a word, she grabbed her coat and stormed out. A sense of dread washed over me, and I followed immediately. The heiress had a tendency to act on impulse, with zero regard for the consequences. As the elevator descended, she stared blankly at the flashing numbers on the display. I stood half a step behind her, the position I had occupied for a decade. Muscle memory kicked in, my eyes scanning the lobby for potential threats before I remembered. That wasn't my job anymore. The moment the doors opened, Victoria's heels clicked furiously across the marble floor toward the Starbucks across the street. I had almost jogged to keep up. It was a weekend morning, and the shop was busy. I spotted Grace immediately at a table by the window. She was wearing a simple cream-colored sweater, her head bowed over a children's picture book, probably prepping for a lesson. The morning sun illuminated her soft brown hair, making her look peaceful and warm. She saw me and looked up, a shy smile gracing her lips. Then she saw the storm cloud that was Victoria Ashford right behind me, and her smile froze. You're Grace Miller. Victoria stood over the table, her eyes raking over Grace as if inspecting a flawed piece of merchandise. Grace stood up a little flustered. Hello, Ms. Ashford. Jake speaks of you often. Her voice was soft, laced with the innate patience of a teacher. Oh, does he? And what does he say? About his difficult boss. Victoria crossed her arms. He says you're brilliant and incredibly smart. Someone he respects a great deal, Grace said earnestly, then shot me a small, helpless look. My heart melted. She was always like that, seeing the good in everyone. The genuine compliment seemed to throw Victoria off for a second, but she recovered quickly. Ms. Miller, do you know who Jake is? He's my man, the one who cleans up my messes. Do you have any idea the kind of dirt he has on his hands? Do you really think a man like that is suited for your quiet little life of packing lunches and PDA meetings? Grace's face paled, but she stood her ground. Jake's past is a part of him. I know the man he is now. He's gentle, responsible, and has a strong sense of justice. I trust him. Trust? Victoria scoffed. How naive. You weren't around when he was making 7 figures a year, but now that he's quitting, you're suddenly ready to get married? I've seen this script before, Ms. Miller. Ma'am, I interrupted, my voice turning cold. That's enough. Victoria whipped her head around to face me, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're using that tone with me? For her. For the first time in 10 years, I gave her a look that was a clear warning. No matter how demanding or difficult she had been in the past, I had always considered it part of the job. But attacking Grace was not. The other customers were starting to stare, their whispers filling the air. Isn't that the Ashford heiress? Who's the other girl? Is that her bodyguard? Looks like we've got some real-life soap opera drama. Grace's cheeks flushed, but she gently squeezed my arm and addressed Victoria directly. Ms. Ashford, I understand that you're upset. Jake protected you for 10 years. It's natural to feel angry and abandoned now that he's leaving. But please respect his decision. Her words were like a needle, perfectly piercing the balloon of Victoria's rage. She froze, as if she'd never considered that angle. Abandoned? Upset? What a joke. She was Victoria Ashford. She didn't get upset over a bodyguard. That's absurd, she snapped, but there was a flicker of panic in her voice. I'm simply handling an employee's departure. Jake is privy to a vast amount of corporate and personal secrets. His resignation requires a strict security review. Until that review is complete, he can't leave. The wedding will have to be postponed. Her declaration stunned Grace, and it made my jaw tighten. Ma'am, I signed a non-disclosure agreement, which I have never violated. A security review is not part of my contract. I'm adding it now, she said, grasping at straws. That's not legally enforceable, I stated calmly. The law. Victoria looked at me as if I'd told the world's funniest joke. In New York City, the Ashford family is Ms. Ashford. Grace's voice was suddenly sharp. The implied arrogance in that unfinished sentence seemed to snap something in her, and her civic duty as an ordinary citizen overrode her nervousness. Labor laws protect every employee in this country. Jake has a right to his own happiness. She was petite, and, standing next to my 6'2" frame, she looked even smaller. But right then, she was like a mother lion defending her cub, glaring fearlessly at one of the city's most powerful women. Victoria had probably never been contradicted by the daughter of a baker in her entire life. For a moment, she was utterly speechless. I looked at Grace, my heart overflowing. This was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. I stepped forward, shielding her behind me, and delivered my final statement to Victoria. Ms. Ashford, thank you for 10 years of trust. My duties have been fully transferred. My wedding to Grace will take place on the 1st of next month at St. Jude's Chapel. We would be honored if you chose to attend. Now, if you'll excuse us. I took Grace's hand and turned to leave. Jake Carter. Victoria screamed at our backs. If you walk out that door, don't you ever come back. Everything you have, my family gave you. Without us, you're nothing. Let's see how long your naive little teacher can support you. I didn't look back. As we stepped out of the coffee shop, the sun was bright. I held Grace's hand tightly. Her palm was a little sweaty, but incredibly warm. I'm sorry you had to go through that, I said. Grace shook her head, her eyes shining. Jake, you were amazing just now. Then, a hint of worry crept in her voice. But, is she really going to cause trouble? That review she mentioned. Don't worry, I said with a small smile. This is a country of laws. She's just having a hard time letting go. I understood Victoria's meltdown. For a decade, she had grown accustomed to my absolute loyalty and constant presence. It was like the air she breathed, unnoticed until it was suddenly taken away, leaving her panicked and gasping. But I couldn't sacrifice my entire life just because she was used to me. I thought my refusal would be the end of it. Clearly, I had underestimated Victoria's persistence and my own importance in her life. The next day, my world turned into a battlefield. First, Grace's preschool director called me, her voice trembling. She'd received a notice from a major city benefactor about a surprise inspection. They were to conduct a full background review of the teaching staff, with a special focus on Grace Miller, who might have to be placed on temporary administrative leave. I made one phone call to the Ashford Corp's head of legal, Mr. Davis. We had a decent working relationship, having put out more than a few fires together. Davis has Ms. Ashford developed a sudden interest in early childhood education. I hear she's getting involved in preschool teacher background checks now. Davis let out a dry chuckle on the other end. Come on, Jake, don't give me a hard time. She's just blowing off steam. Don't worry, I'll handle it. 30 minutes later, the director called back. Her tone completely changed. The inspection was off, she said, and spent 5 minutes telling me what an invaluable asset Grace was to the school. Next, Grace and I went to see a condo we loved. We'd agreed on a price, and were about to sign the papers when the real estate agent got a call from the owner. The place was no longer for sale. He'd rather pay the penalty to break the contract. The agent pulled me aside and whispered, Mr. Carter, he said, he can't afford to get on the wrong side of Ashford Court. I smiled. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. Hey, Blade, it's Jake Carter. Yeah, I need a favor. Look into the owner of Summit Creek Condos, Unit 302. Right, as soon as you can. Blade was a figure in the city's underbelly who owed me his life from a kidnapping case I'd worked for Victoria. An hour later, the owner was practically begging the agent to sell us the condo, offering to come down on the price. Grace stared at me, her eyes wide. Jake, you were like something out of The Godfather just now. I ruffled her hair. Just some contacts from my old job. Don't worry, it's all above board. Mostly, it was just a little leverage based on information asymmetry and past favors. Victoria's attacks kept coming, but each one was deflected by the resources and experience I'd accumulated over a decade as her fixer. She seemed to have forgotten who handled all her problems, who built the networks and learned the methods. I knew her playbook better than anyone. In many cases, the loyalty of those contacts was to me, not to the Ashford name. The more she did this, the colder I felt. For 10 years, I was her tool. Now that I refused to be used, was I to be broken? A few days later, a much bigger player entered the game. Victoria's father, the true patriarch of the Ashford Empire, Harrison Ashford. He requested a meeting at a private club downtown. I expected him to tear into me for his daughter. Instead, the first thing the old lion said to me was, "Jake, Victoria's been turning the house upside down for days. What in God's name did you do to her?" I gave a wry smile. "Mr. Ashford, I just wanted to resign and get married." Harrison's shrewd eyes studied me. He sighed. "I told her you can't force these things. She said you can if you try hard enough." I was speechless. That was Victoria, all right. Her mother and I are getting on in years. She's our only child, and we spoiled her rotten, Harrison said, pouring me a glass of scotch. "She's come to depend on you. Your sudden departure. She can't handle it. The man I recommended to replace me, Leo, is excellent. His loyalty is unquestionable. It's not about capability," Harrison waved his hand. "It's emotional. Jake, tell me honestly, have you ever, even for a moment, had romantic feelings for my daughter?" I sat up straight, my answer immediate and unwavering. "Sir, I took your daughter's salary to do a job. I have never once had a single thought that crossed that line." I could say it with a clear conscience. For 10 years, my feelings for Victoria were strictly professional. Protect and obey. The line was crystal clear. Harrison stared at me for a long moment, as if judging the truth of my words. Finally, he sighed again. "I believe you. But my daughter, she might not see it that way." I froze. Harrison rubbed his temples. "When she was 16 during that kidnapping, you were the one who got her out. She was in a state of shock for 3 days. The first word she said when she came to were, 'Where's Jake?' I remembered. They'd held her in an abandoned warehouse. When I found her, she was huddled in a corner, her eyes swollen from crying. I carried her out of there, taking a steel pipe to the back that nearly fractured my spine. After that, she wouldn't let you out of her sight. She used to go through bodyguards like they were tissues. But she kept you for a decade. Every man she ever dated, didn't you have to vet him first? The ones you didn't approve of, she never even saw a second time. She complained about it, but secretly, she loved it. I remained silent. I thought she'd grow out of it, but you became too safe for her, like the air she breathes. You're essential, but she never thought to appreciate you." Harrison looked at me. "Jake, you did your job too well. You were too much like a machine with no needs of its own. She got used to your absolute loyalty and sacrifice, and it never occurred to her that you might get tired, or that you might one day leave." The old man's words hit me like a hammer. So that was it. Victoria wasn't in love with me. She was addicted to my presence, my devotion. Like a child with an old teddy bear. They might not play with it, but they'll scream bloody murder if you try to throw it away. "Sir, thank you for your honesty. But my mind is made up," I said firmly. "A decade as her protector has more than repaid the debt of that cheeseburger. I don't know the Ashford family anything more. Now, I want to live for myself." Harrison Ashford watched me for a long time, then finally gave a resigned smile. "All right, to each his own. As for Victoria, I'll try to talk some sense into her. The girl's convinced herself that you've betrayed her." "I was never hers to betray," I said quietly. It was a business arrangement. Services rendered, payment received. He didn't try to persuade me further. He was a businessman. He knew there was no point in keeping an employee whose heart was already gone. I thought the patriarch's intervention would calm Victoria down. I was wrong. A few nights later, Grace and I were walking home from a movie when I saw the familiar black Maybach parked at the curb in front of our apartment building. Victoria was leaning against the hood. She was wearing a flawless, custom-tailored suit, but her feet were in slippers and her hair was a mess. A cigarette dangled from her fingers, and a small pile of butts lay on the pavement beside her. I'd never seen her smoke before, and I'd never seen her look so broken. When she saw us, she dropped the cigarette, crushed it under her heel, and walked toward us. The reek of alcohol hit me first. "Jake!" Her voice was raw, her eyes, red and puffy, fixed on me before darting venomously to Grace. "You, go upstairs. I need to talk to him." Grace looked at me, her face etched with concern. I gave her a reassuring nod. "Go on up. It's okay." She hesitated for a moment before turning and heading inside. Now, it was just me and Victoria under the streetlights. The late-night breeze whipped strands of her hair across her face, making her seem impossibly fragile. This was a Victoria I didn't recognize. "Jake," she said again, her voice cracking. "Why? Was I not good to you? Did I not pay you enough? Or Or is it my temper? I can change. I swear I can change. I felt a slight tremor in my chest, but kept my voice steady. Ms. Ashford, you were a fine employer. I'm just tired. If you're tired, take a vacation. 6 months. A whole year. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. Just don't leave. Don't get married. That woman isn't good enough for you. In love, there's no such thing as good enough. There's only... I tried to pull my arm away, but her grip was like iron. What about us? 10 years. Does that mean less than her 6 months? Her voice rose to a shout, and tears finally spilled from her eyes. Jake, look at me. Did you ever, not even for a second, did you ever have feelings for me? She tilted her face up to mine, mascara running down her cheeks, her eyes filled with a desperate, heartbreaking hope. I was silent for a beat. A decade's worth of memories flashed through my mind. Victoria laughing, Victoria throwing a tantrum, Victoria gloating over a sealed deal, Victoria looking small and weak when she was sick. But when I finally spoke, I severed any and all possibility. No, Ms. Ashford, I have never felt anything for you beyond my professional duty as your bodyguard. Not then, not now, and not ever. My words were a blade that cut through her last thread of hope. She let go of my arm abruptly, stumbling back a step, as if seeing me clearly for the very first time. Right, of course. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face, but her lips twisted into a smile that was more painful than any cry. 10 years, and I was just keeping a cold, hard stone warm. She turned, got into her car, and the engine roared to life. The Maybach screeched away from the curb and disappeared into the night. I watched the taillights vanish, but I didn't feel the relief I expected, just a heavy weight in my chest. I knew it had to be done. Any shred of pity or hesitation would have given her false hope, leading to even greater pain down the road. I went upstairs. Grace was waiting by the door. She'd clearly seen everything. She didn't ask a single question. She just walked over, wrapped her arms around me, and whispered, "The shower's running. Go take a hot bath. You need to relax." In that moment, the weight in my chest was replaced by a quiet warmth. This was what I wanted. This simple, understanding warmth. I thought that would be the end of it, that she would finally give up. A week before the wedding, I got an overseas call from Victoria's mother, the elegant woman who spent most of her time at a health retreat in Switzerland. "Jake, Victoria's in the hospital," Mrs. Ashford said, her voice strained with worry. "She's refusing to eat. It's been 3 days. The doctors say if this continues, they'll have to put her on in 4-drip. She won't see anyone. She just keeps saying her name." My knuckles turned white as I gripped the phone. When I hung up, Grace saw the look on my face. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. I took a deep breath. "Victoria's been hospitalized. She's on a hunger strike." Grace froze. Her expression was a mixture of sympathy, frustration, and finally, concern for me. "So, are you going to go see her?" I looked into her clear, trusting eyes and nodded. "I have to end this. For good." Grace was quiet for a moment, then she hugged me. "Come back soon." I drove to the exclusive private hospital where Victoria was staying. The VIP floor was eerily silent, the air smelling of antiseptic and money. I pushed open her room door. Victoria lay in the enormous hospital bed, her face pale and 4 lines in her wrist. She looked like she'd lost 10 pounds, as fragile as a porcelain doll. The moment she saw me, the emptiness in her eyes was replaced by a sudden spark. She struggled to sit up. "Don't move," I said, walking to her bedside. "You came." She whispered, a hint of triumph in her voice. "I knew it. I knew you wouldn't just leave me. Your mother called me," I stated flatly, shattering her illusion. Her smile faltered, but she quickly adopted a look of vulnerability. "Jake, I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Please don't get married, okay? Come back to me. I can't do this without you." I looked into her eyes, feeling no pity, and asked a completely unrelated question. "Ms. Ashford, do you remember what you said to me 10 years ago when you gave me that cheeseburger?" Victoria blinked, caught off guard. She searched her memory, her eyes blank. "You said, 'Hey kid, here, you can have this. When you're done, can you get my ball for me?'" It rolled behind the dumpster. I answered for her. "I ate the burger, and I got your ball. You grabbed it and ran off without ever asking my name or where I was from." The color drained from her face. "To you, it was just a cheeseburger, a tiny, insignificant event. Maybe it was a whim, or maybe you just wanted some little street rat to do you a favor." I continued, my voice calm and even. "But to me, it was the first thing I'd eaten in 3 days. It saved my life. And for that, I sold my next 10 years to your family." "That's not." She tried to protest. "Let me finish." I cut her off. "In these 10 years, I've taken 3 knife wounds for you, 1 bullet and stopped 5 attempted kidnappings. I've dealt with 17 stalkers and countless instances of corporate espionage and sabotage from your rivals. I have 27 scars on my body, and every single one is because of you. I had no personal life. I was on call 24/7. I think my debt is paid. It's been paid for a long time. Victoria's lips trembled. She couldn't speak. What you're doing now is childish and selfish, I said, my words blunt as a hammer. You don't love me. You just can't accept losing control of something you think you own. You're using self-harm to emotionally blackmail me. Have you thought for 1 second about how I feel? Or about how my fiancé feels? If I came back today because you stopped eating, what would that make the last 10 years? A transaction? Something we could renegotiate? What would that make my own self-respect? Fat tears rolled down her cheeks as she shook her head. No, Jake, it's not. Ms. Ashford, I softened my tone, but my words were more final than ever. Let me go, and let yourself go. You don't need me. You're just used to me, and habits can be broken. I took something out of my pocket and placed it on her bedside table. It was a gold-embossed invitation, identical to the first one. Next Monday, St. Jude's Chapel. If you come to wish me well, I would be grateful. If you come make a scene, I paused, looking at her pale face. I will personally escort you out, and you know I can do it. With that, I turned and walked away, not looking back. As I reached the door, I heard the sound of her suppressed, broken sobs. I didn't stop. Stepping out of the hospital, the sunlight was blinding. I took a deep breath of free air, feeling the knot in my chest finally dissolve. I had done everything I could. My conscience was clear. The wedding went off without a hitch. St. Jude's was a small chapel, but Grace had decorated it beautifully. It was an intimate affair, mostly Grace's friends and family, and a few of my own trusted friends who had nothing to do with the Ashfords. Grace was breathtaking in her white dress. My new mother-in-law, the baker, was beaming in a new dress of her own. Her high school-age son was running around playing usher, looking very grown-up. I stood at the altar in my suit, watching my bride walk toward me, and felt a sense of peace and completeness I had never known. The ceremony proceeded smoothly, until the pastor asked me, "Jay Carter, do you take Grace Miller to be your lawfully wedded wife, for better, for worse?" The chapel doors were thrown open. A tall figure stood silhouetted against the light, dressed in a stunning, fire-engine red designer gown and sunglasses, radiating an aura of pure power. Every head in the room swiveled. It was Victoria. She was flanked by 2 new bodyguards in black suits. My body tensed instinctively. I felt Grace's hand tremble slightly in mine. I squeezed it reassuringly. Victoria strode down the aisle, the click-clack of her heels echoing in the silent chapel. She stopped at the front pew. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the city's most famous heiress to unleash hell. She slowly raised a hand and took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were a little puffy, but her makeup was flawless. She looked at me, then at Grace. After a few seconds of silence, she suddenly cracked a smile. It wasn't a pretty one, but it was an effort. She turned to the pastor. "Sorry, I'm late. Please continue." Then she sat down in an empty spot in the front row and even gave Grace's stunned little brother a nod. "The bread at your mom's market is pretty good." The entire room was baffled. The pastor, though confused, cleared his throat and professionally repeated the vow. "Jay Carter, do you take Grace Miller to be your lawfully wedded wife in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part?" I looked into Grace's clear, steady eyes and answered without a shred of doubt. "I do." The pastor asked Grace the same. Looking right at me, her voice was soft but firm. "I do. You may now exchange rings." The rings were exchanged. No drama. Victoria just sat there, watching us. "You may now kiss the bride." I leaned down and kissed my wife. The chapel erupted in applause. After the ceremony, we moved to an adjacent hall for the reception. Victoria came along, found a seat near the head table, and poured herself a glass of wine. When Grace and I made our rounds, the atmosphere at her table was a bit awkward. Victoria stood, raising her glass. She looked at me, then at Grace. "Jake," she began, her voice steady. "I once told you that you can't force things." I nodded. "But I still want to try," she continued, and I felt my jaw tighten. Then she broke into a genuine, self-deprecating laugh. Turns out the damn thing wasn't just stubborn, it was made of solid steel. I nearly broke my hand trying. The room was dead silent for a second. Then Grace let out a small giggle. Victoria looked at her and raised her glass. "Grace, you win. This block of steel is all yours now. Take good care of him. Don't let anyone else get any ideas." She downed her wine in one gulp. Grace raised her own glass, smiling. Thank you, Ms. Ashford. I will, and I hope you find your own. Sweet melon, very soon. Victoria set her glass down, pulled a thick envelope from her designer clutch, and pressed it into Grace's hand. Happy wedding. A gift. Then she took out a flat, old-looking wooden box and handed it to me. I hesitated, then took it and opened it. Inside wasn't jewelry or cash, but a carefully preserved, yellowed piece of greasy paper. I could still smell the faintest, ancient scent of burger grease. It was the wrapper from the cheeseburger she'd given me all those years ago. I looked up at her, stunned. Victoria looked away, a hint of awkwardness in her voice. Found it when I was clearing out some old stuff. It's disgusting. I was going to throw it away. Just brought it for you on a whim. It was a souvenir, I guess. I held the weightless box, but it felt heavier than anything I'd ever lifted. 10 years of my life, the close calls, the duty, the obsession, it all came back to this one small, greasy piece of paper. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. This gift is precious. Victoria waved a hand dismissively and put her sunglasses back on, hiding the redness in her eyes. I'm out of here. Watching you too is giving me a cavity. She turned and, with her bodyguards in tow, swept out as dramatically as she had arrived. It was like a sudden thunderstorm that passed as quickly as it came, leaving clear skies behind. The reception continued, the atmosphere now genuinely light and celebratory, as if her appearance and bizarre blessing had cleared the air for good. I later heard from Davis that Victoria got seriously ill after the wedding. When she recovered, she was like a different person. She took over the core operations of Ashford Corp., becoming even more ruthless and brilliant than her father had ever been. She never mentioned my name again, and she never bothered Grace. A year later, Grace and I had a baby girl. She was chubby and smiled all the time. As a courtesy, I sent out a mass text announcing her birth. The next day, a massive crate arrived at our door, almost too big to fit in the living room. It was filled with top-of-the-line baby supplies, clothes, and toys, enough to last our daughter until she was 3. There was no card, but I knew who it was from. Grace picked up a tiny, soft dress and smiled. Ms. Ashford style really hasn't changed in 10 years, has it? I smiled back. Looking at my daughter's innocent face, I felt a profound sense of peace. I had the yellowed wrapper framed, and it hangs in my office next to our wedding photo. It's a memento of a beginning and proof of an end. It reminds me that I once risked my life out of gratitude, and that I fought just as hard for my own freedom. In the end, I paid all my debts and seized my own happiness. My contract, the one I'd signed in my heart all those years ago, was finally paid in full. Now I was a husband, a father, and finally just Jake.